This futures trading strategy, published last December, takes a unique approach to generating a momentum signal from the RSI. The strategy buys or sells a pullback to the 5 EMA and exits a rolling 12-bar high or low. The best trades tend to work within 2 to 6 bars, and a hard stop using an ATR of 2.75 is also incorporated for additional risk control. It claims about a 60 to 70% win rate with a profit factor of 1.5 after commissions and slippage. So let's test it out. The first thing you'll look for is the M0PB momentum pullback strategy. There are a handful of indicators that are found inside the code that you can add to your chart to see what this is actually doing. If we look at the start of the code, we can see that there's an RSI with a look back window of 6. So we'll add that to our chart. There are also 2 EMAs, one based on the high as the source and the other based on the low as the source, both with a look back of 5 bars. So we'll add 2 EMAs. Finally, there is an indicator that looks at the highest and lowest bars within the last 12 bars. So we'll take this indicator, remove the moving average, and set this to 12 for both. So let's look at the trading strategy settings and make sure that it matches with how this would work on TradeStation. Since we're trading the S&P 500 E-mini futures, it's going to require a higher margin value for each trade. So this trading strategy assumes you have at least 30,000 in initial capital. It says 1 contract here, but the trading strategy actually trades 2 contracts. And the commissions with TradeStation are actually set on a flat fee per contract per side, which you can find by going to TradeStation's website and looking up their execution and clearing fees. If I type in ES here, you'll see that the E-mini S&P 500 futures are $1.28 per side. Slippage is currently set to 1 tick, which is probably okay for 2 contracts at a time. And so far, it looks like the stats hold up, 63% profitable and a profit factor of 1.2. So let's look at some of the trades that were actually successful. We'll go back as far back as we can first. Let's take a look at this first trade here that gained us 4 basis points. And we can see here that this was a short trade in which the initial signal, indicated by this green bar, shows an oversold territory in the RSI, and a pullback occurs and touches the high EMA, and that's the indication of our first trade. And then it sells when it reaches the lowest low within 12 bars. Looking at the second trade, it picked up 20 basis points. It's almost an identical structure. We get an oversold territory here. A green bar shows up on the indicator. It waits for the pullback and trades the first cross of the high EMA, and then sells the lowest low that it finds within 12 bars. This one here picked up 62 basis points. Let's take a look at that one. For this one, we can see here that we have an overbought territory, and we get our first red bar, which indicates the start of the signal. A pullback occurs and crosses over the low EMA, which is where our entry takes place, and it sells as soon as it crosses over the highest high within 12 bars. How about this trade that picked up 66 basis points? We can see here that we entered oversold territory. A green bar shows up on the indicator. We wait for a pullback, which crosses over the high EMA, and we enter our position. And then we sell at the lowest low within 12 bars. So looking at this strategy on the current contract, it seems to hold up pretty well. But how about in the past? I have all of the ES contracts going back to 2018 here, and I want to look through each of these contracts to see if the performance changes quarter over quarter. Looking back, for example, at the third quarter of 2022, it looks like the win rate and the profit factor is a little different. Win rate went up, but the profit factor came down, and ultimately it only seemed to pick up performance towards the tail end of that quarter. There was also a pretty significant drawdown. As I look through each of these, it seems like the performance is varied, but sometimes it does extremely well. Like the fourth quarter of 2021, it had a percent profitable of 73% and a profit factor of almost 1.8. So let's say we want to stand up this strategy with TradersPost so that it can be fully automated. The first thing we'll need to do is make sure that we actually select the current contract for the E-mini S&P futures. The current one is the ESH 2023 contract. Next, we're going to set up a webhook on TradersPost. Now, I already have a futures webhook, but for you may want to set up a new webhook here. And the way that you'd set up a new one is you give it a name, make sure the asset class is set to futures. You can allow any ticker because our futures contract name is going to change every quarter. You can set it up to email you, and we'll hit save here. Now what we'll want to do is set up a strategy, and we'll call this the momentum pullback strategy. It's going to work with the futures webhook that I just set up. We want the sides to be both. This is a strategy that goes long and short, and we want to disable the side swapping because we don't want it to reverse the position. It's going to trade futures. We can skip over most of these settings, and at the end here we'll just tell it to entry market and exit market, and we'll hit save. Finally, let's subscribe our TradersPost paper broker to this strategy. Don't forget to enable your strategy after you create it, and make sure to set auto submit so that it automatically submits to your broker. Now let's go back to the webhook, and we'll view the futures webhook and click on the send request button to get the settings you're going to need for your alert. Now what we need to do is connect TradingView to TradersPost, and we're going to copy this JSON payload, which is going to send over all the instructions for the trading strategy over to TradersPost. So here I'm going to create a new alert. I'm going to select the M0PB trading strategy as my alert condition, and in the message I'm going to paste that JSON payload. Under notifications, I'm going to make sure that the webhook URL matches my webhook URL here for futures, which I can copy here, and then I'll hit create. Now I can see here that I have an alert set. Whenever a buy or sell signal is sent for this trading strategy, it will send over all the instructions to TradersPost to trade. So if you liked this review of this TradingView strategy, please like and subscribe, and leave a link in the comments if you have a TradingView strategy you'd like me to review.